Hey everybody, Adam here. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that has very likely saved a lot of people, but unfortunately it's a topic that a lot of people forget about. What I want to talk about today is the 10 essentials. The 10 essentials are an agreed upon list of essential things that you need if something were to go wrong out in the backcountry. Number 1 on the list is your navigation. So this means a map, compass, and it's the modern day age, so also the GPS. We need something like this to be able to navigate the terrain. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? There are apps that you can currently get on your phone that you can download the map, get it offline, load it up onto there, and then you're good to go. This is the Garmin GPS that I take navigating with me. Oftentimes I will use this in lieu of a map, but I still like to have a map as backup. What's nice about this is if I don't have a map, then I have at least some clear indication of what direction I'm going and where I'm at in relation to the terrain. Number 2 is lighting. I cannot tell you how many times I've been on the trail and it's just taken way longer. I'm out filming something and I catch myself in the dark. You absolutely need to have lighting when you're on the trail to see where you're going. So that could be anything like a headlamp. I highly recommend a headlamp because that allows you to be hands-free. You can go through the terrain and move through your environment, and you never know wherever you're at. You might be bouldering, you might be climbing something really sketchy and steep, and you're gonna want your hands free to be able to do what you have to do to get down the mountain or canyon or wherever it is that you're at. Number 3 is sun protection. You definitely need some form of protection on your skin because the ultraviolet radiation that's going to be coming down on you all day can make major changes on your skin. It can burn you, and I'll tell you, I had a lot of experiences when I was younger where I'd go outside all day, especially hiking somewhere up on the ridgeline. Even on my most recent trip to Big Sur, I've been going camping for years and I have a checklist and I somehow managed to forget my sunscreen. You definitely need some kind of protection, even if it's long sleeves. If it's something that you can use to cover your face. In my last video, I used a balaclava to cover my face and that ended up being the bare minimum. I definitely recommend sunscreen and something better than that, but if that's all you have, then at least it's something. Number 4 is a first aid kit. When I first started out, I believed in a very minimalist first aid kit. I didn't have much in it. A couple band-aids, some ointment, maybe some ibuprofen, light painkillers. Now I bring a larger assortment of bandages, extra medications that I might require, and even in some cases a splint or ankle support. You need to judge how long that you're going to be out for and what your risk is. So risk management and being able to determine what you need for your needs, it's going to play an essential part in planning your trip. I think that it's very dependent on your philosophy, whether you're an ultralighter or you don't really care much about weight, so you over prepare. But I at least believe in bringing the bare minimum that you need to do whatever that you're doing. So say you're somewhere remote that requires you to have a long time to get somewhere. And that could mean a lot of different things. So what does remote mean? Well, in some places like Mount Shasta, California, there's a highway. You could see it right from the top of the mountain. But just because you could see the highway and you're at the top of this almost 14,000 foot mountain doesn't mean that search and rescue is going to send a helicopter or they're going to send their teams out right away. Mountains are huge, especially that one has multiple glaciers, crevasses. It's going to take some time to find you. You have to plan for what you need and use that risk assessment. See what your conditions are, and that's going to really determine the flexibility of what you need and what you need to bring to prepare to go on these things. Number 5 on the list is a knife, and there's a couple different things that you could get with this. I just personally like to bring a small little knife, but for example, if you're a bushcrafter, you might want a larger knife so you can cut and process wood so you can make those finer shavings. The knife is important because it allows you to open up packages, cut rope, food. It's a multi-tool that you could use to fix screws on your gear, all of your stuff. Even if it's a knife or a multi-tool with the little pliers on it, is excellent. It's going to go a long way to help to repair gear that will inevitably break, right? Because gear isn't always perfect. Stuff always happens, and you're gonna want to have a backup just in case. Number 6 is having the ability to start a fire. To be able to start a fire out in the woods when you're on your trip is an essential thing to have, because it's going to allow you to cook food and keep warm. One of the number one things that kills people out there is the cold and exposure, and the difference of a fire could have saved their lives. When I go out, I take always 3 forms of fire starting tools or a fire starting kit. So that's my alcohol stove or whatever stove I may have. That's my matches, and I have my little ferro rod. It's almost like a flint and steel. Even if you're just going on a day hike, the ability to start a fire and just carrying some matches or a little big mini lighter, they come like this big, is super important, and it's gonna go a long way to keep you safe and protected and your body fueled and ready to go when you're out there. Number 7 is shelter. The importance of having a shelter is incredibly important when out there in the woods or whatever environment that you're in, because it's going to keep you warm, it's going to keep you out of the elements, and it gives you a place that is safe. When you're out camping, anything like a tarp, tent, bivvy, hammock, that all counts as a shelter. When you are out day hiking, in comparison to camping, you might not be using a full camping setup, and you might want to pack a little bit lighter. That's okay. These days, they now have portable little shelters in the form of bivvy sacks that they come about this big, and I always carry one when I'm on a day hike that's kind of remote. Hike like this, I probably wouldn't, but you still could. If you're anywhere inaccessible, I highly recommend it, or even above tree line, because that sort of emergency bivvy is going to be the difference of hours. In my last video, I talked about the death of Kate Matrasova and her presidential traverse, and the difference of something the size of a Coke can. It may very well have been the difference between life and death at that point. So it's basically a little sheet of, almost looks like Mylar, like a space blanket. It is very helpful to protect you from the elements. It's not a perfect system, but if you layer up properly, have a little ground mat with it, it can go a long way to doing its job and keeping you safe out there. Personally, I really love hammocks. Hammocks are, in my opinion, the most comfortable for me. Number 8 is extra food. Bringing extra food is on the list of essentials because you don't know if you get injured or something like that. You might have to kind of camp out, sit down, and wait for somebody to show up. Or the route might have changed. Maybe there was a landslide. Maybe it snowed more. Maybe it rained more and flooded everything. Who knows? The list could go on. Nature is very diverse and unpredictable. In fact, life is very unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow for sure. You got to prepare. You got to have that extra food to keep you going along and keep you warm. Again, hypothermia and exposure is one of the biggest things, and keeping your energy and metabolism up is going to play an essential factor in being able for you to carry out whatever it is that you're setting out to do. And the requirements are going to differ depending on how hard your trip or journey is. Whenever I'm out hiking or camping, I always try to bring a day's worth of extra food, whether that be like a backpacking meal, maybe some granola bars. Pair with number 8. Number 9 goes together, and that is bringing extra water. Having redundancy in your water is key to your hydration level. You don't want to be hiking all day and not done your research beforehand, and then you come up and it's like, oh, where's my water? I have no idea. So you want to make sure that you have your water caches planned if you need water caches. For example, if you need to go, if you're in the desert, like in Joshua Tree or the Mojave, or if you have a desert near you, you want to try to store your water somewhere. Maybe plan your route so that when you do a loop, you have a place where you can drop off your water before, and then once you pass that point, you can not have to carry as much weight. If you're in a place like Big Sur, very heavily coastal forested area with a lot of moisture, a lot of rivers, streams, that sort of thing, maybe you just take like a liter. Then you can have like a water filter and just filter as you go to save weight. Number 10 on our list, extra clothes, clothing. Insulation, stuff that you can bring next to your skin and keep you warm. Depending on the time of season or location, you are going to need additional insulation to keep your body warm. I like to use things like synthetics. They always taught us growing up that cotton kills, and when it's wet, it doesn't dry quickly. It'll keep you warm when it's dry, but because you sweat and move around, it is not going to be able to keep you warm as efficiently as it could. The other thing I like to use is down. Down's great When it's wet though, it doesn't work. So you have to gauge your conditions, where you're at, what's best for you. I also use a synthetic like down. It's very nice because it can get wet, but then once it's wet, it will still keep you warm. The final thing before we're done with this list is that note that each and every single one of the items mentioned can definitely be adjusted, curtailed to wherever you're going, how long you're going for, and what your preferences are. As long as you have something in place that meets the criteria, you're good. And that concludes our list of 10 essentials. I appreciate you guys for watching. If you'd like to learn more about this stuff, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out. And until then, I'll see you out on the trail.